You know, I decided to eat before I did anything on camera today, and spaghetti. We did dinner, you know, marvelous time. Wouldn't you know it, falls right on me, stains my shirt. You would say, well, why don't you just change your shirt? And I'm just like, I didn't really plan on changing in general, and I've got this literally next. So I was like, you know what? Maybe not. So you know what? Give me 1 second. We're going to get this changed up. Okay. There we go. This is feeling more comfortable now. I don't have spaghetti sauce covering my entire body, so this might do us some good. Okay, welcome everybody properly now to another Gear Talk. It's Thursday, it's a Gear Talk time, 5 o'clock. Here we all are once again. Now, the last video we did, we talked about Michaela Dorn, and she is a stranded. I forgot to mention that the mammoth that we're talking about today, spoiler for you, we're talking about the mammoth. She actually got this in her hometown also. I'll put it down here because I believe it's Aldair. Is her hometown. The mammoth and her came from the same place. We can assume all of it was together at one point when she got the mammoth with her crew. Anyway, continuing onwards. We're talking about the mammoth today, so I got my little trivia tidbit cover up out of the way first. So we're talking about not just the mammoth, but mammoths in general. So there are more than just one. This isn't some specialty temporary prototype thing that she found. No, mammoths have been used in the past, and they have been used further on in the story. Mammoths, if you don't know, are these huge, giant, I believe the measurement we had, I saw it on the wiki even, I believe it's accurate, 141 feet long. These mammoths are huge. They are considered like land ships, and they're mostly used for like digging for precious minerals or resources, like emulsion. They are used to pretty much send the drills down, and you would ask why not we do like an assault derrick like what Dizzy drives with Betty, I mean. Well, the reason is that these are made to be like on the road, on the go bases. They're pretty much bases of operations, which, if you play tactics, you'll understand that a lot of things happen within the mammoth. For instance, when they have meetings and everything, it's pretty much within the mammoth. The mammoth is the go-to area, base of operations, everyone is together. Now, in Gabe's expertise with mammoths, we do see that with him having engineering background, now part of the engineering corps in the gears, we do see that he at least knows how to like fix one, but that could just be any machinery kind of. It's really more of, with his expertise with everything, it came down to, while they were all inside the mammoth kind of, everyone else was driving around them. Everyone else had their own vehicles, trucks. You had other people that were, I'm sure someone probably got their hands on a Centaur at one point, just the little mini tanks they had. So we have that kind of situation with Gabe's convoy. This was like the main flagship for all of it. So let's talk about mammoths in general, and let's talk about just how big they are. Now, talking about the mammoth involves talking about the actual size of these things, because as far as I'm aware, they are the biggest, aside from ships, they are the biggest land kind of vehicles that the COG has. They're 16-wheelers. They do not go on treads. They are on wheels. Now, if you're wondering why that plays a big thing, these things weigh a lot, to the point where you have to be careful where you drive them and what you are driving on. Any soft ground or anything that would be like concrete that can be cracked, that poses a problem. You can take these vehicles out, the mammoths, on like off-road and everything, but the problem is that if they get stuck, they are not going anywhere. These vehicles are not made to get stuck. They're very large. They're not made to turn. They are very cumbersome things. They are very hard to maneuver and hard to drive. Driving is another very important thing to bring up, because as we'll talk about with all the decks and how big this thing is, when it comes to driving this thing, like in the cockpit or the driver's area of things, everything is covered and armored. This entire thing is a fortress, pretty much. The person driving does not see where they're going. That's one thing you need to know. If you've played Subnautica, you're going to understand this. Everything's kind of done by cameras. For instance, in Subnautica, you get into the Cyclops. The Cyclops is this giant, pretty much submarine you can drive around. It's bad at turning and everything, and you mostly rely on the cameras around the Cyclops. Same thing goes for the Mammoth. The Mammoth is used with cameras on each end, near the headlights, everywhere, so you can see where you're going. The reason for this is pretty much that even though civilians, it can also be given out to engineering for civilians or for miners or anything like that, this is also something used in the COG. This is something where if there's like an enemy unit, like back in the day with the UIR that comes by and starts shooting, this is to make sure that the driver is not going to get hit by any stray bullets or anything coming through. Like we saw in Gears of War 2 with the assault derricks, you can shoot through the windows. You cannot do that with a mammoth. Mammoths are way too heavy duty for bullets to do anything. Getting into the mammoth itself and talking about how large they actually are. As we saw in Tactics, it was big enough where it was pretty much like its own tower, its own building, pretty much how big it was. But there are different levels to a mammoth. One of the things you need to know is that they go by decks, and there are 5 decks found within a mammoth. The first deck we're going to go over, and I'll just go through deck by deck and give you all the information we have. And I have everything written here because there's a lot going on in these things. It doesn't seem like it in Tactics. There is a lot that goes on. You can house like a dozen gears in here, or even civilians, or stranded, and it works as a mobile base. Everyone is working inside of it. It's like its own little hive of like ants pretty much with like 12. So starting off with deck number 1. Now for the mammoth itself. For anyone boarding the mammoth, this is where you get on. Deck 1 is pretty much the entrance to everything. Deck 1 is used as a ladder. You go up. It's a big enough like area to walk on where, you know, there's only one way to continue forward from deck 1, but it's big enough where like people are able to walk around, they can look around, you know, like if you had a patrol or something, they would stand out on deck 1 probably. Deck 1 or deck 4, and we'll get to deck 4 soon. And that would probably be where like your patrol will be just looking out to the countryside or wherever you are to see what's going on. So there is only one way up from deck 1 to deck 2, and that would be using a ladder that is placed on deck number 2. You'll take that ladder from deck 1, climb that one, and you'll end up on deck 2. I should also say, from the ground to deck 1, you will also need to take a ladder. Ladders are pretty prominent for the decks. Continuing on, we have deck number 2. Now, deck number 2 is where a lot more things for what the mammoth was originally made for, and that is for the drilling. A lot of the things involving drills are found here. It is important to also mention that the mammoths can do more than just be used for mining and drilling. They are used for other things altogether. For instance, in the books, like the Slab and Coalition's End, we do learn that you can hook up a mammoth and they can get attachments. One of the attachments is a bulldozer. The other vehicle in the cog that uses this technology, the bulldozer portion, is known as a behemoth, which is made to solely bulldoze. Now, the mammoth is bigger than that by a long shot still. The mammoth is the biggest vehicle we have, but you can attach a bulldozer onto this thing and just go straight through and just cleave your way through anything. The other thing that they have is also the ability to lay down bridges. They can use their legs for stabilization. They can take it, an attachment can take, and it can make a bridge on its own. That way you're able to board onto the bridge, walk across, drive across, anything you need to do. It can work as a bridge layer. Now, like I said, the bridge laying portion and the bulldozing portion are separate attachments. There's only one part of the mammoth that is built in, and you pretty much just can't take it off. And that is the drilling portion, because the main focus of the mammoth is to be used as a central base for drilling for precious minerals like emulsion or anything else you come across. There's a number of things you can easily get out of the ground that's going to be great for a military. But that is mainly what it's for. The drilling section, that is pretty much just attached onto this thing. You find that on level 2. Also on level 2, you will find engines. The engines for this thing are light mass powered. So, you know what, at the end of 1 when you use the light mass bomb, yeah, that's what's powering this. Put that in your head. Obviously on a smaller scale than a giant bomb like that, but it is using light mass technology in order to fuel itself and run. Not only that, you have a lot of things involving engineering. You have a lot of the fixing tools. A lot of things used for fixing any damages that happen throughout the mammoth is found on level 2. Deck 2 is where you'll find that. The engineers keep everything there, from tools to probably bigger, heavier equipment for taking care of things. Also, you have the external legs, like I said, that help stabilize, and you also have the drill operator controls, because this is also where the drill operator will be manning everything. He'll go into another cabin that's on here, and he will manage getting everything working. From deck 2, we enter into deck 3. It's important to also state that getting from deck 2 to 3, there is going to be another ladder that'll take you higher up. Deck 2 is basically on the outside built just like deck 1. Aside from the drilling portion and the storage, you are able to walk around a bit. There is a little bit of room where if you had to do another patrol, you could do it up here for a better lookout. One would be kind of just like looking through the ground, but if it's a higher area, you could go into deck 2 and look around a bit higher. Deck number 3, this is where we have a lot more things happen internally. This is like the center of the entire mammoth itself. So from here we have the internal portion you'll enter into, and this is where you'll find storage, the sleeping areas, and again, this is made for like a base of operations. The gears and the soldiers, engineers, anything are meant to be working, sleeping in this giant moving ship pretty much on land. So you'll find them sleeping in this area, just in a crew bay or something. This is their area. So, not only that, but on the external area, like Deck 1 and Deck 2, they also have an external walk area, but this one's a lot narrower and smaller, probably to make room for more of the internal stuff, like the crew cabin, and also for like storage and everything that you'll find inside. This also will connect into two different areas I keep wanting to say ship, two different areas of the vehicle from here on out. The first way is going to be connecting, it'll be a hatch that'll lead up to Deck 4. So, once you go into Deck 3, on the internal side of it, you will notice above at one point there is going to be a hatch that you open up and you can enter into Deck 4 from. There is also one other way we're going to be getting into, and that's going to be connecting to Deck 5. Deck 5 is a little different from all the other decks because it's not going upwards. It's more like Deck 3.5, but they call it Deck 5, so we're just going to call it Deck 5 for this. Deck 5 is actually going to be a doorway that connects to it. I'm assuming it's probably going to be either from the internal or external way. It will lead you into Deck number 5. Deck number 4 is essentially the roof. So once you enter into Deck 5, this is the highest you can go on the entire vehicle. You are on top of the vehicle at this point. So up here not only is the roof, but you also have, as we learn in tactics, and it is brought up kind of in the art style and everything, you have a makeshift style of a sniper tower, kind of like at the very top end in the front. If you needed to look over and you saw enemy fire or something was coming, it does work for a sniper tower up there. You can have someone with amazing precision or something, like Michaela, go up there and they have full view, high ground, everything from the top of the Mammoth. Not only that, we have the hump on it. The hump is pretty much in the center frontish area that goes over like this. That's what separates into two separate areas for Deck 4. Deck 4, on the backside, you are going to have the drill overseer. This is the person that'll overlook anything, relay to the person operating and tell them what's going on, or see if there's anything out there geography-wise that can be looked at or drilled into. From there, we also have on the front, we have the person who will look forward and look at the geography of the area, scan everything, see what's coming up and what's not going to be a viable option or what will be. Again, the driver does not see anything. Everything is armored. You are not going to see what's going on in front of you. It helps to have an eye in the sky aside from the cameras. And then there is one other entrance from here which will lead to number 5. There are two ways into Deck number 5, one through Deck number 3 and one through Deck number 4. Deck number 3 will be the door. Deck number 4, there is a hatch that leads directly into the driver's cockpit. And that leads us to Deck number 5, the final of all the decks, more like 3.5, but we're just going to stick with 5. So, Deck number 5, this is where the driver is located. This is where the person going in is going to be manning and driving the vehicle. But there's one more thing you need to understand. With a vehicle this size and a crew and everything, there is also a commander on board. There is someone who commands the entire vehicle. Then there's the driver. So it's like a ship. It really is a land ship. You have the commander, the captain pretty much, and then you have the driver or the helmsman. So that's how it kind of works here. The driver, he can get in through Deck number 4. The hatch leads directly into where he would drive. The door leads into the entire driving area, but if you go in through the hatch, he's directly in front of the controls from there on out. So, not only are you going to enter in through there, if you go through the hatch you're driving, door you're kind of just in there, it is a large area. Like, it's pretty big by what they talk about. So I would assume you have the commander pretty much standing in the back on an elevated area, kind of looking over everything on monitors, looking at screens. The driver probably also has a connection to screens, and the commander is probably relaying information to the entire crew and telling the driver, here's what our next course is going to be. My assumption. The driver probably ain't calling the shots on this one. So if Dizzy were in this thing driving, he would not be in charge. He'd probably call it Betty 2. Betty 2 ain't going to listen. The commander of Betty 2 ain't going to let Dizzy do whatever he wants with Betty. She is a sweet lady. And Betty 2, even sweeter. So, not only that, but like I said, very large, no windows. This is where everything is handled. And from there on out, that's all the decks you will find on the Mammoth. There are a few extra things that are talked about and discussed involving the Mammoth, and there's also one that kind of makes sense that they don't mention. One thing that is brought up is that it's a really small contained environment. Like, everything on this thing is kind of like the environment of the crew and everything. There's probably stuff that they can, and this is like an assumption because of how large it is and everything, they probably have like an area in the third deck that probably works as like a mini greenhouse or something. Again, probably like some very strong lighting and everything because they don't have any windows anywhere, and they're probably just growing small things that are just like go with, or like greens that can go with anyone on the crew, because I'm assuming, again, like they're living their own environment. This is like their own area. And as we'll say next up, there is a kitchen here, so they probably have supplies and everything, but also like probably like an extra little area just to like grow and have things. You know, like you watch like space movies or anything, and they have the greenhouse portion of like, you know, the ships. I'm guessing they have something on like a very smaller level, like some sprouts or something in there. Like probably just for like, here, this is for nutrition. That's pretty much what we're doing. Like I said, from there on, we do have the kitchen. The kitchen is an optional thing that you will find on Mammoth. So I'm guessing not every Mammoth is built the same, at least on the interiors. The kitchen portion is probably an area that can be storage or something or renovated into a kitchen. You can have a person on the crew that can run the kitchen. You can have a cook. But I'm guessing it probably falls under like what the mission is, how long they're going to be away, or like how big this Mammoth is. That's what my assumption is. We also have 2 different storage areas. There's going to be a goods storage, kind of like miscellaneous goods. Probably a lot of like resources will go there. Probably just anything like you'll find on the crew, like on the ship itself, on the vehicle itself. Again, this thing's big enough you can call it a ship at this point. But kind of like that. You'll also find an ammo storage because, again, not only do you have like COG, soldiers, stranded at one point we see, and we also have like civilians that can use this when they were doing mining operations. But remember, like this is a full crew. You probably have miners, you probably have COG that are stationed with them. If it's COG sanctioned, everyone there is a member of the COG. So everyone's going to probably need an ammo locker, or their own lockers probably, just to make sure that everything's hunky-dory and ready. So we have all of that. And the one thing that I did not find mentioned anywhere that I think needs to be addressed is a bathroom. Because it has all of this area, the captain's quarters, which is the cockpit pretty much, is big enough like that. There has to be a crapper somewhere on this thing. Like one room, even if it's like 3 foot by 4 foot, at least somewhere you can drop a toilet and drop a Duke in this thing. There has to be, unless you're expecting everyone to hang off of the side of deck 1, 2, or 3. I'm assuming you're probably going to have a bathroom, so I'm guessing there's probably a bathroom there, kitchen. Like, honestly, it sounds like you got everything you need. Like, it's no wonder Gabe was just like, this lady has a Mammoth, we're taking the Mammoth with us. Would you like to join? Obviously, Gabe was looking for, like, more soldiers. Michaela knew what she was doing, but in the back of his head, you had to think he was like, we could use a Mammoth. Like, a Mammoth ain't nothing to scoff at. That's going to help out. I like the look of this. And how it helped, it did. Because for the history of it all, we do have situations that happen, obviously, with tactics. We use it all the way through as the base of operations. We do have in the slab, it's brought up, and there is a situation in Coalition's End where we talk about it, and that's pretty much where they use the bridge laying device, and that's how they kind of get Baird and Foxtrot Squad out from being stuck. Mostly just Baird. Foxtrot was just kind of there. And they get Baird freed through that method. Other than that, yeah, that's pretty much going to do it about the Mammoth. There's not much more to talk about. The vehicle itself is what I really wanted to focus on, because this thing is just, when you actually dig into what it is, it's like this thing is a mobile fortress big enough to be comparable to ships. 141 feet is pretty big. So I think that's going to do. I think that's going to cover this. I figured I wanted to connect something from Michaela, and, you know, she had a Mammoth. So there you go. Perfect segue. So, yeah, that's going to do it. I want to thank everyone for watching. I want to thank everyone for making this possible. And I would like to thank the patrons for making this possible. Next video, we're leaving it up to a vote. You guys decide. I can't wait to see what you decide to pick. It's going to be exciting. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.